So this is the first video where we are going to go into the theory of the firm. And so that sounds kind of complex and mystical. And so the first thing I want to do is just say what a firm is. And a firm is just a broad name for a company or any economic entity that takes inputs like labor and capital and land and then turns out outputs, which are goods or services that we consume. So it's really anything that produces a good or a service is a firm. All right, so the first place that I just want to start off with is a bunch of definitions, and I wrote all these out here so that you have them in one place, and there are a couple others that I'm going to write out just to the right by hand, but I thought I'd type these up just so that it's a little clearer. So I want to write out the abbreviations that I'm going to use and that I've always seen used for all of these different names. So profit is normally abbreviated with pi. And so profit is equal to total revenue, which is abbreviated TR, minus total, and I put economic in here to distinguish this from accounting. So total economic cost. And if you are unclear on that, let me know and I'll go over it in another video. But that's kind of a lengthy topic, so I'm not going to cover it here. Okay, so total revenue minus total cost. And total cost is abbreviated TC. So then total revenue, we already said was TR, is just equal to price times quantity, P times Q. And I want to emphasize this, and this is really important. This is if price is constant. Otherwise, it can be something else. And the way that you find total revenue if price is not constant is just the price for the first good. So if the first good sold for $5, and then the second good sold for $10, and then the third good sold for $7, you just have to add them all up individually. But if price is constant, then you can just multiply them because multiplication is repeated addition. Alright, going on, I'm just going to erase that to keep some more room. We have total cost is defined as total variable cost, which is TVC, plus total fixed cost, TFC. And so this is just one way of breaking up costs. And variable costs are costs that vary with quantity produced. So I'm going to write that here. So the reason they're called variable costs is that they vary with quantity, and I should leave a little more room there with, and I'll just write with Q. So for example, if we were talking about making sandwiches, a variable cost would be the cost of bread and the cost of all ingredients, because the more sandwiches we make, the more ingredients we're going to have to use, and those cost something. So as we make more and more sandwiches, our variable costs are going to increase. So I'll just put here in parentheses in green, I'll put ingredients. Ingredients. Alright. So then total fixed costs are costs that don't vary with quantity. So these don't vary with quantity. And the example that I always like to give is rent. So again, if we owned a sandwich shop, our ingredients would vary with how many sandwiches we sold. But it doesn't matter how many sandwiches we sold, we're still going to have to pay rent every single month, and it's going to be a fixed amount per month regardless of how many sandwiches we sold. So that's a fixed cost, rent. Alright, so now we're getting down into all of the average costs, which once you get the idea once, it's kind of stuck in there forever. So average variable cost is normally abbreviated AVC, and that's just total variable cost divided by quantity over quantity. And you'll see with all of these that it's just the total divided by quantity. Sorry about that. Alright, so average fixed cost, AFC, is just TFC divided by quantity, and then average total cost is equal to total cost divided by quantity. And then lastly, there's one other way to get to average total cost, And this should be, you should be able to put this together just from the other formulas, but I wanted to just write it out to be explicit. That average total cost can also be calculated as average variable cost AVC plus, or sorry, average fixed cost, I flipped them around, AFC plus AVC. And you should have been able to see that if we divided this entire thing by Q and we divided the left by Q and the right by Q, that would have gotten us this same exact equation. But I just wanted to write it out there to be super clear. Alright, so I said that I was going to write some things over to the right here, and I absolutely am. And so now I want to get over to these. And what I want to cover on the right, and I'm going to draw a little line because just to keep these kind of separate in our brains, is on the right we're going to talk about the marginal definitions. So marginal. And the concept of marginal is really important in microeconomics and all of economics for that matter. And what it is think about the margin of a page. It's what's on the very edge. So if we're talking about the margin of the page, we're talking about this part right here or right over here. And so what marginal means in economics is it's dealing with I'll say it has to do with the next unit of production. And so what we're talking about here is if we have produced 5 units, let's say we've made 5 sandwiches. So it's kind of easier to explain with an example. So we've made 5 sandwiches. And used, let's say that we sold them all. So sold for a total of $25. Now let's say that we make a 6th sandwich. So we make a 6th sandwich, and I'll just write SDWCH, and we sell that for $5. So we sell the 6th for $5. And I'll spread that out a little, for $5. So our marginal revenue, the revenue that we made from the last unit of production, or the next unit of production, and I'll put last here because that's sometimes an easier way to understand it. So our marginal revenue is this $5 because the last unit of production got us an additional $5. So our total revenue, so when we had sold 5 sandwiches, so I'll just put quantity here, and when quantity was 5, our total revenue was $25. When our quantity was 6, our total revenue was $30. And so our marginal revenue of the 6th unit of sales was 30 minus $25, which is $5. And so lastly, I just want to cover marginal cost in exactly the same context. Let's say that it cost us, so let's say total cost of making 5 sandwiches was $10. So we used $10 in ingredients and time that we had to pay people and all that stuff. And then to make the 6th sandwich, let's say that it cost us, our total cost now was $12. So the marginal cost of that 6th sandwich would be 12 minus 10, which is 2. So I'm going to do an entire video just on marginal revenue and marginal cost so that you get a really, really good idea of those, but I wanted to put them in here because I don't think any introductory video would be complete without dealing with the concept of marginal definitions. So with that said, I am going to end this video, and I'll see you in the next one.